Right, welcome everyone to the 5th Maryland BioEducators meeting. And actually, this is the first one in this academic year. So we are here to give a jump start to the academic year, hopefully, and get into the flow of things for starting the new semester or new year, whether you're in school or in community college. I think it would be best to start with introductions. So let me just start with myself, and then I will nominate someone and they will introduce themselves and nominate someone else. Okay. So my name is Amrita Marabushi, and I wear many hats, but my primary role at my workplace is as Associate Director of Postdoc Affairs in the Training Office at National Institute on Aging. I'm also doing adjunct teaching at Baltimore City Community College and had served there for about 10 years. So I'm pretty excited to still be connected to all the education at community college and high school level. And I feel very, very passionate about it, something that I wouldn't want to leave. So I'm glad that we came together and, we are back to work now. So let me nominate someone, and I think I will nominate Angela because she's our guest today.
Nice to meet all of you. I'm Angela Consani. I am a professor of microbiology at Johnson County Community College, as well as the CEO and co-founder of the Bioscience Core Skills Institute, which we're going to be talking to you about that today. I've co-founded it with my colleague that you'll be meeting here momentarily. So I'll nominate Heather Seitz.
Thanks for having us today. I'm Heather Seitz. I'm also a faculty member at Johnson County Community College, where I teach our biotech course here on campus, as well as being the COO and co-founder of the Bioscience Core Skills Institute that we're going to share with you today, sharing our passion of documenting skills in students. Yeah. And I have to nominate somebody, Amrita. I will nominate Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie Madden. I am at Hartford Community College up in Bel Air, and I'm working on bringing up our new biotech program. So we are kicking off our newly developed course this fall, and so I'm pretty excited to get that started. So I have to nominate somebody. I'll nominate Valerie.
Hi, I'm Valerie Cousins. I teach at Frederick High School in Frederick County in chemistry and bio, and I also teach at FCC with Savita in their biotechnology department, and we're just working on increasing our partnerships between the high school and the community college to create some pathways for students into the field. So I guess I will nominate Savita.
Thank you, Valerie. This is Savita. I teach at Frederick Community College. I'm the biotech program manager. And as Valerie said, we are trying to build a pipeline of high school students and get the program aligned to the industry needs. Thank you. I nominate Laurie from MC.
Good morning, I'm Lori Kelman. I teach biotechnology at Montgomery College in Germantown, Maryland. We're hoping to get back to normal. Savita and I, along with the UMBC TLST program, are going to have the Mondays at 4 webinar series continue, and I'll put a message in the chat at some point, but basically email either one of us and you'll get an invitation. And that's most of what's happening with me. Cindy, did you go yet? You're muted.
I have not gone yet. Hello. So my name is Cindy Kelly. I am I'm in Howard County at our centralized career academy teaching biotechnology. And I've been teaching it for, I don't know, a lot of years, 15 years, more than 15 years. And I just added to that document that Amrita added. it might be helpful to put what you're doing, who you are, and what your institution is. That would be really helpful for me, actually, because my pencil just broke and I can't take notes anymore. So I will nominate Avi.
Hi, I'm Avi Silver. I am the coordinator of the Academy of Biotechnology at Northwest High School, and I teach molecular biotechnology, and as well as chemistry and music technology. We just took the biotechnician's assistant credentialing exam this past spring. We had 10 of our kids pass. We were hoping for more because it's out of 20, so 50%, which is the national average. But our first 8 kids that took it all passed, and so we were like, "Oh my God, they're all gonna pass!" And then the failures started coming in. Granted, though, the failures were close. 80% is passing, and most of them were over 70%. Oh, thanks for sharing that. It helps actually a lot.
Next year will be better. Next year will be better when we know what we're doing and we can do it in person.
Yeah, for sure. And I passed, and Gori also passed. We took it as well, so we could have the experience. Gori actually had the high score on the knowledge section.
All right.
So I'm actually going to pass off to Gori, who will be teaching our special topics in biotechnology class that we're opening next year.
Yeah, like Avi said, I'm also at Northwest High School, and I teach bio and chem, and we're expanding our biotech program to 2 people because Avi convinced me to join. So yeah, I'll be teaching special topics in biotechnology next year. Who hasn't gone? Did Heidi go?
No, I can go.
Okay.
I am Heidi Ortolano. I teach the biotechnology program at North Point High School in Charles County. This will be my 4th year with the program, and we're still trying to develop it a little bit. So sorry, I've got my toddler running into the room now that she hears me. But yeah, I'm looking into kind of revamping our curriculum a little bit because we just follow the Biotechnology Science in the New Millennium by Ellen Dardy. We followed that textbook. So I'm looking to add some stuff or find other things. So yeah, that's me. And I will turn it over to Josephine.
Thank you, Heidi. Hey guys, good morning to everyone. I'm actually 20 plus years teaching at Prince Charles public school system, and I teach AP biology and biology. I was also up until last year, I was the health and biosciences coordinator. Yeah, pretty much, we were also planning to implement a biotechnology program, and that's what, I got this connection into this, this team. And last year, I don't know, I just kind of, missed my students, that communication and their contact and everything. So I kind of, quit my coordinator posting and, came back to the classroom. And I just, came here today to see what you guys are offering and how I could actually implement this biotechnology program as an elective or something like that in the regular coursework. Thank you.
We're equally happy to have biology people. And I think you can nominate Heather.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Heather.
Yes, Heather.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Canogan, and I teach biology at Cecil College. And at Cecil, we are just starting a bioproduction program. So the first introductory course was taught in the spring semester, kind of as a trial run, and we had about 4 students. And so we're starting again this fall. I'm actually not teaching any of the bioproduction courses currently. I teach biology for majors and non-majors, but have been kind of involved trying to help get the bioproduction, off the ground. We're very interested in recruiting right now and how to attract students, how to kind of build the pipeline without cannibalizing, our biology as well, our biology program as well.
It's wonderful. So thank you everyone for the introductions. And what
I
we
think
have,
we missed Linda, I think.
did we miss Linda? I'm so
Yes.
sorry, Linda. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute. Good morning, everybody. My name is Linda McDonough, and I teach at the Science and Mathematics Academy at Aberdeen High School in Hartford County. And I teach a semester class in biotechnology using Ellen Doherty's textbook. I also teach a class called Science Research and Technology for juniors in preparation for their senior capstone project. And we do some 3D modeling using JMOL and other online resources. Good morning, everyone.
That's wonderful. So we have, just for perspective's sake, Heather and Angela, we have 24 counties in the state of Maryland. And in this meeting, we have 7 counties represented, which is kind of nice. And there are, not every county has biotech programs. So this is primarily like almost all the programs that we have in Maryland. So we are excited that everyone is willing to come on basically a day on a holiday or a vacation, basically, and being able to attend this. So what we're going to do now is move over to the next part of the meeting, which would be, we are going to turn it over to Heather and Angela. But I think the idea of this bringing Heather and Angela to this meeting was by Jackie. So I want to turn it over to her to say what we're going to do in the next part of the meeting. So Jackie, it's over to you.
All right, so I've known Heather in a variety of capacities for years. We've worked in some different things together through some community college, increasing community college participation in discipline-based educational research and things like that. And Heather is also a Pulse Fellow along with the Dean at Harvard, Pamela Pape-Lindstrom. And so Heather had talked a little bit with Pamela about her the new Bioscience Core Institute credentialing program. And so Pamela and I met with Heather and Angela a few weeks ago to kind of find out more about their program and to see how we could possibly implement it as we develop our new program as well at the college. So both Heather and Angela are at Johnson County Community College, I believe, teaching a variety of biology, microbiology, biotech courses. Angela also has an incredible background in, combining and bridging the gaps between K through 12 and community college and industry. And so they're bringing a lot of experience here to us, I think, today, not just with their credentialing institute, but also just in general of biotech, some of the best practices in those areas. So I'm going to let them do a little more introduction of themselves. I think they already introduced, who they are, what they teach. So I want to not I'll leave it at that. So thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. All right. Amrita, is it possible for me to share? Oh, there we go.
Yes, you can share. Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Angela, you able to start? You're on mute. There we go.
Sorry about that. I didn't want you to hear my thunder. I'm Angela Consani, and thank you, Jacqueline, for saying such nice things. I have been in science education for nearly a decade and a half now, and I have taught all grades. I've taught K through, what would you call it, 14 is what I would call it in my past. So I have a strong passion for workforce development, and Heather reached out to me in the middle of the pandemic with this idea, and of all the times to start something new. But we did all have a little extra time on our hands, and it turned out to be fortuitous that we did it this way. So we launched last November with the Bioscience Core Skills Institute, both of us coming with a history of frustration with the existing credentialing landscape that was being offered and made available to us, and sort of that disconnect between industry and education. So our vision is a future where students and trainees and employees can accurately and reliably document the skills that they acquire, no matter where they acquired them. That's of singular importance to both of us. Our long-term mission is we want to provide workforce skills assessment and digital micro-credentials that are valid, reliable, and trusted by the bioscience industry. That last part being exceptionally important. And working with education and industry, we will provide assessment opportunities and document skills that have been acquired. So a quick examination of the current state of things, what we've run into as educators in the biotechnology space. Often industry has low trust for the current credentials that are available because certificates and degrees can offer a wide range of courses, right? Graduating with a bachelor's in biology can mean that you never visited a lab because it could be a bioinformatics emphasis. Getting a certificate in biotechnology can be lecture only, or it can be a heavy lab emphasis. There's a lot of different curriculum, a lot of specialties. There's low standardization, and that has resulted in a lack of trust for industry. The degrees often don't articulate the actual skills that were acquired in the program. My biggest frustration, and I tell this story often, coming from a extremely urban service region with Kansas City, Kansas Community College, is often students don't finish the certificate and they leave with absolutely nothing. What they leave with are a lot of skills that they have no proof that they have. So I spent a lot of my time working within that college, making a lot of phone calls, reference phone calls, where I would call Thermo Fisher, or I would call Millipore Sigma and say, no, that's one of mine, that kid that you're interviewing. He's one of mine. And because of that, what it says on his resume, he really can't do those things, or she really can do the things she's offering to you. So that was frustrating to me that they could drop out at mid-semester, having worked their way through aseptic technique and small volume metrology with great pipetters, and I had no proof, right? I had no way for them to port those skills into jobs, and there are jobs. The Kansas City region is the global leader in animal health biotechnology, so there are jobs available to them. So we established a model. Originally, we were only going to do this regionally, and then the word got out that we were doing it, and we were contacted by a lot of programs nationwide, and we had to create a model where we could scale rather quickly. So we're seeking evaluators and programs in each state to act as our representatives, as BCSI representatives. They'll provide assessment events and deliver testing within the region after being trained and certified by BCSI. While it's not required, we do prefer that they adopt our credentials for their own programs, and then work closely with adjacent programs in the region to offer testing reciprocity, because one problem we've run into is if you only have one tester in the region and they can't test their own students, then their own program becomes the only program with the gap. We also would want that representative to attend local industry-oriented events, market the value of these credentials to industry, helping them understand that this is a transparent and valid way for students and trainees and employees to port their skills from organization to organization, but also since they're searchable, they can identify highly trained individuals within their own organizations by looking at these badges. You ready for the next slide? Okay, so how's it different? The big difference is the one I was talking about. This is not an all or nothing exam. Our credentials are very small, discrete packets oriented around a single skill. And the testing is to test for deep mastery of the skill, rather than kind of the common knowledge or vocabulary or general content idea. Instead, these are practical assessments where we go on site and we have individuals perform activities, physical movements in front of us. We all know as an instructor, when you see someone hold a pipetter, you immediately know if they know what they're doing. And as you watch them work with it, you can tell if they've truly mastered the instrument or not. These are physical skills. So it's important that most of these tests be practical tests, which means that we watch them perform the movements. We give them tasks that are defined around those movements and to show that they've mastered it. So BCSI is looking to go very narrow scope. We have one badge for small volume metrology that says you know how to pipette. We have a badge for quantitative lab skills that says you know some of the basics of the math that's required to function within a lab. And we want them to be recognized by industry. So easy to look at and immediately see what you're dealing with. Rather than just putting initials on the badge says exactly what it is. Needless to say, a lot of the third-party certificates that are available are very broad. They're all or nothing. You sit for the test, and if you don't pass, you leave with nothing. That's very hard for me to accept as an educator. I love it that they're available. I love how far we've come with the certification in biotechnology, but we want something to offer to those students who can't do a full, massive 7 hours of assessment. But maybe they're really, really great pipetters, or they're great at aseptic technique. So we want them to be able to leave with the skills that they've acquired, no matter where they acquired them or what their final scores were in the classes. So we see micro-credentials as currency that students can use to interact in the marketplace. They're the currency by which they go out and find a job. And micro-credentials are great in that they're rich with data. There's data embedded in the badge. So when a student passes a credential with BCSI, they get a line of code in their email. If they deploy that code on a digital resume or on LinkedIn, and anyone clicks on that code, inside that graphic is the name of the badge, the criteria by which they were tested, the person who tested them, what date they tested, meta tags that make the credential itself searchable on the internet, a URL that allows them to port it from place to place, the expiration date for their skills, and then a URL back to our website where they can even look at the details for each of the individual badges and what the criteria we used when we assessed that skill. So there's a lot of information here. My favorite thing about it is that these are searchable. So within companies, if you have digital badges on your employees, you can actually search within your company to see who has what skills. And if you're looking for someone with a particular skill set, you can find them in that kind of 2,000 employee set of individuals. Or you can search LinkedIn with the very specific skill criteria and find out who has it and who doesn't. It's a much easier thing to do than to search for an associate's or certificate in biotechnology or a bachelor's in biotechnology, which we all know is the most common criteria that they end up searching for. So these micro-credentials support workforce at all levels. This includes high school training programs, technical training programs. Here in Kansas City, we recently had a large organization step into the training space in biotechnology. They've created a workforce development space where all they do is train in biotechnology skills, with the final goal being to transition the unemployed and the underemployed into laboratory technician positions that don't require a degree, but do require a high level of physical skills. At the associate's level, we have bachelor students who are reaching out to us because they're not able to document their skills. And there is beginning to be a distrust even of a Bachelor of Science in biology, because maybe they majored in wildlife biology. So rather than bothering to examine transcripts, they are now requiring that people find a way to display their skills. We have, oddly enough, we were very surprised to have PhDs reaching out to us and in their postdoc situations, looking to be tested so that they can document their skills. And then, of course, employees who have difficulty documenting the skills that they have acquired while they're on the job, and looking to port those into promotions or port those into moving to new organizations.
Right. So it's really important that if these credentials are successful, that they are informed by industry, recognized by industry, and that the skills are aligned with the work that's already been out there. So we've done our homework. We've been working very closely with industry partners that are listed here on this slide, as well as our local biotech workforce programs like BioNexus and BioKansas, and the bio programs overall. So we want to make sure that these credentials are valuable. In addition to our board, which has industry expertise across a number of different levels, we also have an advisory group with additional industry expertise. We are working, Russ Reed is on our board, and as many of you guys know, he wrote the core skill standards for bioscience technicians. So we're taking advantage of the work that's already been done out there in this field to make sure that we're staying aligned with that, and making sure that we do have the capability to longitudinally track our credential seekers and the employers that they feed into, so that we can begin to create that value proposition and close the gap between education and industry. We really seek as educators, right, to make sure that our credentials are valid, reliable, and transparent. And then with partnerships in industry, making sure that they have that value that we want them to have. We know that part of that process for us includes a third-party assessor. So that means not testing your own students, having somebody come in and test your students for you. I dearly love my students, and one of the hardest things was watching somebody else come in and do the test for you. I'm like peeking around the corner, right? And the evaluator, Angela, was one of my evaluators, was, get back, leave them alone, they're doing fine, right? So I want them to be successful, and that's what makes me a good faculty member, but it may not be the best third-party assessment of their skills. So that's one of our important values in creating these credentials. We also are continuously collecting data about these credentials, and the time it takes. We're getting industry representatives to take our credentials to make sure that they really are measuring what we think they're measuring. And the goal of all of this, of course, is to provide value. So hoping that we can create a situation for industry that where less training is required. When they're hiring somebody, they know exactly what skills they have available. One of the benefits that we've been able to give back to educational programs is basically a program assessment. So when we test all the students in a program, which we've done 4 or 5 times now, we're able to look across all of the credential testers, right, the students, and see what are the gaps over across the whole program, and feed that information back to that educational program and say, hey, look, this is the areas that your students excelled at. These are some of the areas that maybe needs a little bit more work to be in alliance with what industry expects. So that's been an incredible value back to our educational programs. And then of course, making sure that the students and trainees that take these credentials have value when they go to the marketplace, like Angela already mentioned. Some specific details. So for our first tier credentials, we call these our first 5 or our core set. We've changed the name a little bit, and you can see more about our credentials at our website. But these are our first set of credentials that we feel are really that basic level, entry level technician skills that we encourage people that approach us to take. So that includes labeling, documentation, and SOP, small volume metrology, like Angela mentioned, and pipetting, some of those quantitative lab skills, safety, and then aseptic technique at just the lab bench level. Each of our skills, if you go onto our website and go to the top right corner, there's a credentials tab. It will have information that looks like this. So it will tell for every credential what the objectives are and what performances we're going to be looking for to help assess those objectives. So this one is for small volume metrology. And so we're expecting them to be able to use the right tool to deliver a specific volume and to accurately deliver that volume. So they'll deliver it multiple times for this particular credential. And you can see some example values. So for each of our credentials, we have that information available, and that helps obviously inform what these credentials are to industry. If you clicked through on our Badger site, it leads right to these pages. So industry can easily find this information, as well as educational programs like yours can see exactly, okay, are my students ready for these credentials? Are the students themselves, as they look to see which credentials they want to test for, are they ready? Do they know what is expected of them? As we've done this over the past 6 months now, 7 months now, 8 months, I've lost track, November to I guess that's 9 months, right? 9 months now. We've collected a lot of data. So we've assessed over 60 credentials. I think we have 5 or 6 programs that we've assessed. And we can see that there certainly are some trends. So safety, everybody's doing a fantastic job of assessing and training on safety. We also see really high award levels for small volume metrology and aseptic technique, and we still see some continued gaps. And these are, like I said, been really important to feed back to those educational programs at what is expected at the documentation level, what is expected for quantitative skills. We really want to make sure that these are industry aligned. And so being able to feed that information back about what is expected in industry to these educational programs has been really helpful as we've done this assessment. And lastly, we are a nonprofit organization. So we early on tried to look at this from a financial perspective and realize it really has to be a nonprofit organization. This is a passion and a love of ours, and not necessarily a money-making adventure. To do this kind of practical testing is very expensive. And so seeking funding from workforce partners, from private donors, from grants and other outside funding helps us reduce the cost of these individual credentials, because our goal is to keep them incredibly affordable. Our right now, each credential is $20. Our goal is to get it less than that. We recognize that these are individual skills. We also recognize that students or trainees are the ones that need these the most, and have to pay for them, but it's really that workforce that benefits. And so we are looking for models and funding sources that help us reduce the cost. We have had a lot of programs that have built it into their program cost rather than passing it on to the individual students. And that's been important. We are funded by the organization here in Kansas City called the Kauffman Foundation. And part of that funding we have is to help provide this kind of credential assessment to high school students that may not have the ability or the funds to pay for them. And Angela, anything I missed in talking about?
No, I think you covered it.
All right. Well, we'll stop there. I don't want to take up too much of your time, although we could talk forever about these credentials. But any questions or comments that you guys have, are incredibly welcome.
Wow, that was amazing. But I'm sure there are lots of questions. So, let everyone ask the questions.
So Lori asked how long the test takes. So it does depend a little bit on the assessment, but we are trying to keep them as efficient as possible. So we have between 15 and 20 minutes is the sort of allotted time for each credential assessment.
So I have a question. So how does it work? Like, will you come down to our college to do the testing? And who pays for all that? And how does it work?
Yeah, Savita. So particularly, so like Angela mentioned, our model is to train evaluators in your own geographic area. So a partner of yours, some at a community college in Maryland, right? Maybe Jackie gets trained as an evaluator, and then Jackie would come down to your program and test your students. Hopefully you are also then becoming an evaluator and can go back and test Jackie's students. So it's a reciprocal model. We do charge, like I said, a fee for each credential. Half of that fee goes back to the person doing the evaluation, so that it is work that's compensated. So our trained evaluators do get compensated for each credential tested, and then we keep half just to keep the organization running.
It was really key to our model that we do the testing on site. There's so much research that shows that students do better if they're tested under the same conditions under which they trained. So coming into the laboratory where they've done the training and doing the testing there establishes a comfort level that allows them to show their real performance rather than creating an artificial or high risk environment.
Yeah, absolutely. There has been cases where we have individual testing events where individuals come to a third party facility to do the testing, but for the most part, that is absolutely our model. Yeah, to come to you.
So how has it worked in the colleges that you have already done the credentialing? Like how many students were there, and what time was it during the class time? So how has it worked?
Yeah, so the educational programs that we've visited right now, they have built the time into their schedule, but it is flexible as you need it to be. So hopefully the evaluators in your area, or if Angela and I are coming to do that evaluation, we can be flexible around what works best for your students. In some cases, we've had them after work for some of our workforce partners. We've also had them during the day where the program builds like a day of their program training. To do that, I had my students, like I said, do the testing, and it was one of the days of class that they did that. Depending on the number of students and the number of credentials that you want them to test for, It can vary in the amount of time it takes. And it also could be the case where more than one evaluator can come and do that testing based on the numbers to keep it within the time frame that you might have. And we also are able to create, sort of, like I said, reciprocal opportunities to do that for other people. And so if students miss that day, for example, they might be able to come at another time. Yeah.
One really cool thing about kind of disaggregating the test in this way is that if you do have a program where you're concerned about overburdening your students with testing, you can disaggregate the tests and spread them across your semester too. So you finish up the unit on pipetting and they're still fresh and you get them tested. And that confirms that they truly do know how to pipette, but without having that huge time lag till the end of the semester. One thing we found is this encourages reinforcement of these skills across the entire semester, but it also allows you to hit them while they're fresh. By disaggregating it and breaking it up across the semester, you can actually map these assessments across your semester at the times when it's primed for testing the students.
Yeah. One of the things partners that are interested in using an exam like the base exam I heard earlier mentioned, right? This is a great way to build them up for that big, large, broad, all or nothing assessment. We know that the literature on digital micro-credentials shows one of the big benefits is the self-efficacy that's gained at each little step. As they gain each one of these little credentials, they are like, wow, somebody in, I think Pam, Jackie shared a story about how she did a little training and got a pipetting certificate that's still on her wall, right? So you build this self-efficacy at each time one of these credentials is taken. So spreading them out is absolutely an option. I see in the chat, Linda and Avi both asked about taking the tests. Yeah, we can come out and do an evaluator event. We can definitely speak with the Maryland Educator, your organization, about when that would work, and come out and do a testing for you. That's the first step in becoming an evaluator, is taking the assessments yourselves. We want to make sure that our evaluators are able to recognize mastery by demonstrating that they have mastery as well.
Then looks like the evaluator needs to come in multiple times in the year, right? Or during the semester. Okay.
Yeah, it depends on how your schedule goes, right? So yeah, so that was one thing that you'll have to work out with the evaluators in your area is how often do you want to have, is it, quarterly at the end of each semester to do a set of these credentials, or in some programs it may be that they may not get mastery until the end, in which case they do all of them. I think it's very flexible. We like the disaggregation of it because it can fit every program and the timeline that they have.
Yeah, we find with the high school students that disaggregated mapping across curriculum works really well. With community college students, because they've done so many lab intensive experiences, often they can do it as one combined skills test at the end. For example, next week we have a program that tests at the very end of their training. So they do 16 weeks of training, and then the last day of class is skills testing, where we come in and test every member of their program for all 5 skills. As far as retesting, Cindy, I just saw your question. I'm sorry about that. We do offer retesting. We think that it's important that people be given the opportunity to return to their training and practice, and then come back to testing again. And that they're absolutely offered the opportunity to retest.
How is the industry response to this kind of program that you have launched?
Yeah, so and Angela, you can fill in the gaps if there's anything I leave out. But basically, all the industry representatives that we've spoken with have been incredibly enthusiastic about this. So they love the idea of being able to readily recognize these credentials. We're working, like I said, to fine tune our rubrics and our level of mastery towards what they are looking for. So we have a big industry event coming up in September where they're going to actually see and participate in the testing itself, to look at that. But so far the response has been enthusiastic.
To give you an idea, we hadn't even really been in business 2 months before Thermo Fisher joined our advisory board. They're extremely excited about this idea. Not only the ability to identify in their new hires if they already have skills that they say they do, which it's very common that they say they have skills that they don't. Thermo Fisher at the technician level hires through temp agencies. And because the temp agencies are not always science savvy, they don't necessarily understand how to spot it when someone doesn't really understand what they're talking about. This is what I'm hearing as feedback from Fisher. So they're very excited to have scientists testing their new hires before they hire them. As well, a key to the value proposition with the industry is their ability to search their own workforce. If they have a new position that opens up, they can look to hire from within first and sort of grow your own. They can see where their gaps are and cross-train between departments so that they can move people around on days off and during vacations much more readily. So the ability to search these within their own organizations is also a big part of this.
MSDE is Maryland State Department of Education. Just saying.
Yeah, so accepting that we have not pursued industry recognized credential status in Maryland, but it's definitely something that is in our longer term vision, is getting these recognized by the state organizations. That helps with funding and articulation. Absolutely.
And that's really a very wise question coming out of, so Heather's current program in biotech at Johnson County is an academic program. But my program at KCK was not biotechnology, it was biomanufacturing. And we laugh a lot about this because in Kansas, I attempted to pursue a certificate in biotechnology as my program and was declined because I was told a certificate was not a high enough level of classification for these students to get a job. So I took all the paperwork and I brought it back to the computer and I loaded my thumb drive up. And I did a find and replace, and everywhere it said biotechnology, I changed it to biomanufacturing. And then I resubmitted the paperwork and got full approval. Which would be funny if it was funny, right? But it's not funny, but it's the truth. States love that word. They love manufacturing. They love CTE. So absolutely in our long-term strategic plan is pursuing IRC status. The difficulty with doing so is we don't have a single credential, right? We've disaggregated this. So it could potentially be pursuing IRC status for all 5 of the core. And then as we add the second and third tier, which we're rolling out gel electrophoresis, we're going to roll out PCR, we're rolling out analytical scale usage. For every skill that they have in the lab, we want to have a badge. And that's a lot of IRCs. So getting states to understand how important it is to disaggregate some of these credentials, it's going to be a tough hill to climb. But we do plan to climb it. We've got 2 states. California is already looking at it potentially, and then Linnea is interested in looking at it with Texas. So we can get a couple of states on board. That's really the chink in the armor.
Yeah. It might be helpful to go through the, there's a Maryland State MD Bio, which is for the employer side, and that would be a great thing to get on board when we go towards the Department of Ed. And to try to, I think some of the other programs in CTE are disaggregated. Like I'm pretty sure the auto is, and I'm pretty sure that the finance is disaggregated. Their certifications are individual skills.
That's a great point, Cindy. Yeah, and definitely a model we can look at is the auto programs, and some of the other, even computer science in some cases have disaggregated credentials. Heather asked about industry being an evaluator. We do have one of our trained evaluators is from industry, and we absolutely welcome that. I think that's a fantastic way for industry to recognize the value and to get a chance to look and see who's doing what in their programs. Yeah. And Josephine, we have not pursued yet getting graduate credit for that training, but I wrote it down as looking at what that would entail. So definitely something we could look into.
Yeah, this might actually, attract more teachers to participate in this kind of program. Mm-hmm. This is very important for teachers to, renew their certification every 3 years or 5 years, things like that. So, if you have those kind of programs, definitely teachers, high school teachers, they definitely get attracted to this program.
And Avi, you were mentioning that you guys were looking at 50% pass rates. That other 50% that didn't, that's my target market. those are the students I want. Those are the students I want to test more than anyone else, because don't tell me they left with nothing, right? Don't tell me they didn't learn anything, right? But I want to prove it. I want to prove how much they learned.
What I love about your targeting, so I did something kind of similar in prepping for it. So I made all these for the math side of things. I've made all these apps that'll auto generate questions. And so the premise of those is when they get something right, their score goes up. When they get something wrong, it goes down. I call it like adaptive practice. The idea being that if they already have the skill, it'll be easy for them to get to 20. If not, hopefully they'll have had a lot of practice by the time they do get to 20. So we did really well on the practical section that used a lot of those types of things. So I would have loved, and especially for their sake, because it's really nice. What I like about the micro targeting of your thing is it gives them a really good sense of like, okay, these are the skills that I have and that I have down. Whereas like you said, like when you see I got a 77%, great. What do I have? What don't I have? The other question I have is, so one thing I used to do, specifically with lab math, is we'd give them this quiz in November, I think October. And I'd make them get 100%. If they didn't get 100%, like if they forgot to write a unit somewhere, or if their procedure wasn't totally there, like they were using the wrong equipment or something like that, they wouldn't get 100%. They have to take it again. And I had like 50 different versions of this quiz. And I'd have like 10 kids lined up at the end of the quarter, still doing retakes. And so I thought that was perfect, because I was like, great, they all know it 100% by the time they're done, and they'll have that skill forever. And then what I found is the one year I decided to check at the end of the year if they still had it, and most of them had lost it. And that's why I then switched to making those apps. And then instead of like, because I can't do that quiz thing every quarter, I then decide I do the quiz the first quarter, and then the rest of the quarters they have to do the apps just as like booster shots, basically. So the only thing I'm curious about with these micro tests is, do they have to do follow-ups? Like if they, like if they've been prepping and then someone comes and checks them, and they get that badge, can they lose the badge later? Do they get checked a second time later in the year?
The badges expire. So they can hold on to the badge for 2 years without being retested. But at the end of 2 years, the badge will expire unless they can show us they've used that skill in the 2 years. So we seek documentation similar to what you run into with professional development, right? Or with licensing, other licenses. If you can show that you've been actively using that skill the entire time, whether it be through a third party writing a letter saying they work for us and they pipette daily, or if you can show that, we renew it for free. But if they cannot show that they've used the skill for 2 years, they will be required to pay to retest, and they'll have to be able to show that they still have currency to their skills. That's the only way we can sell the legitimacy of this to industry, right? We can't say we licensed them 10 years ago in quantitative lab skills, but we're pretty sure they're still really good at it. We all know what our math looks like after 10 years of no usage. So it is going to be important that they recertify, or at least show that they've got currency from usage.
Yes, so as a part of this, of the MD Bio, we have discussed about two things primarily. One is more related to industry, and one is to higher ed. So higher ed would be credited, how the credits can be transferred across higher ed institutions. And the other one, which is more related to you, is how skill sets, how students gain skill sets, and that are transferable as eventually as jobs or careers in biotech companies. So that's where it comes in handy. And for both of these, we're trying to leverage eventually, some advisory, like we are trying to get Garner's advisory board members to come in. And so this could be something that can come up as an agenda to share with them that this kind of credentialing, it's something that the industry should know about. It's something that they should learn about and maybe accept it as one of the criteria, and or maybe at least look at the people who have those credentials to say, okay, this is certified, we know this, we are in knowledge of BSCI credentialing. So this is something that we can bring up when we come to some of those I guess those agenda items with the Governor's Advisory Board members.
We would love that. Amrita, I can tell you, Heather, one of the reasons that Heather and I make such great partners is I have a huge passion for workforce development, and Heather has a massive passion for data and assessment. And so one area that she's developed within our program is collecting longitudinal data. As students who have these credentials are hired, one part of the model is for BCSI to collect the longitudinal data from their industry. So from the hiring entity, whoever hires them, if it's Thermo Fisher, we would stay in contact with Thermo Fisher and collect the equivalent of like National Science Foundation evaluation data later, where we would come back to, say, Thermo Fisher and say, were these valuable to you? In what ways did you save money because you hired a person who had these credentials? So we do plan to collect that long-term data, which will help inform on the value proposition and develop those relationships with industry.
So how do people get started? Let us say they are interested. So what would be the next steps that you suggest?
So depending on whether the interest is at a state level, a group level, or an individual level, one way or the other, if the individual is interested in becoming an evaluator for BCSI, they would just reach out to Heather or I, and we're easy to reach. It's heather@coreskillsinstitute.com or angela@coreskillsinstitute.com, or you can just look up BCSI or Core Skills Institute on the internet, and we're reachable through our website. Reach out to us and let us know that you're interested in becoming an evaluator, and then we would work on setting up some sort of reciprocal relationship within the region. We would set a evaluation training date. Those are usually 2-day events where we come into, say, Maryland and work with the interested group. The first day is testing because, of course, the evaluators have to be able to pass the testing. And then the second day, we would train you in the use of the rubrics and the delivery of the assessment protocols, as well as BCSI's requirements for their evaluators when they interact with organizations, things like that. And then you would be a certified evaluator for BCSI. After that, appointments would be arranged for by you. You would work as an independent contractor for the organization. You would arrange the appointments and the testing events. One thing that we're seeing happening a lot is if we have 2 evaluators in a region, they test each other's students for free. So they're developing these reciprocal relationships, which allows that person to come in as a third party, keeps the individual from testing their own students, but also works out to being only $10 per credential for each of those organizations. So they waive their fees for each other. And by testing together, that reduces the cost of grading by 50%. And then after that, the appointments are made. You work with Heather and I to get an official BCSI appointment scheduled. We provide all of the rubrics. We provide an inventory sheet that you can provide to the testing location of what they need to have on hand. You're not going to take with you pipetters. You're not going to take with you the equipment that's already there in their laboratory. And then you show up on testing day, perform the evaluations on their students, report that data back to BCSI, and we make the final pass-fail determination in-house. Then we would issue credentials to the people that you had tested if they passed the assessments. And then the evaluator, if there is no prior relationship, is reimbursed at a rate of 50% of the cost. So if you you should bill $20 per credential per student. So usually with that core 5, that would be $100 for those 5. $50 of each of those testing packages would be reimbursed to the evaluator to cover their costs of travel and their time spent performing the evaluations.
When you guys come down to train us as evaluators, how do we pay for that?
You're muted, Heather.
I just realized. Yeah, so we do have an evaluator licensing fee that you pay upfront. That includes the cost of the credentials themselves. So that's the $100 for the first 5. And then the $300 is the fee for the training and for the use of all of our rubrics and sort of our franchise model, right? So that you can do all of that work. The goal, the reason why we created that cost is to be able to earn it back very quickly with 1 or 2 testing events. So we don't hope that it's a long-term sort of financial burden, that it's something that you can easily make back by doing some of the evaluation. But we did want to make sure that we're incentivizing people that are really interested in doing evaluation for us and not just doing the evaluation licensing process as a professional development event. Although it's fantastic for that, we really want to make sure that that the benefit goes both ways, and we really need trained evaluators in each of our regions to serve the industry and the training programs. Yeah.
Now, that was kind of product of feedback from our board. Our board was very concerned that we would be licensing evaluators who would then sit inside of their protected territory and not actually do any testing. And so having an evaluator fee ensures that our evaluators have some skin in the game to go out there and do several testing events, if for no other reason than to recoup the cost of their evaluator certification.
And so then the goal would be that if we have individuals in Maryland that are all interested in this, we could choose a time that would work for us and you to come out and do like one training in the region so that it's not correct. And then also we would have that network here in the region to test each other's students.
And then we would help facilitate how you guys do that reciprocity. Yeah.
That's exactly the model that we have with California. We'll be training a group of evaluators in California in January. The idea being, of course, if you map it across your region, we wouldn't want to train like 8 evaluators in one tight region unless they're all willing to travel outwards from there. So that's why the reciprocity model works so well. If you've got a couple of people with programs, usually you know each other if you're nearby. And so sharing that information back and forth and sharing services back and forth has been a really good way to cover regions very quickly.
I see a lot of interesting elements. I see the elements of like people being able to communicate with each other a little more in terms of like what skills are being taught here and taught there, and see like, oh, that's what you do. I see. And, you know, that kind of, you know, communication between the programs would become a little more natural. One thing I worry about is a lot of community college students are just having financial aid. So would they pay? That's something I think about. I don't know if they will. Hopefully it would be an investment once the industry is on board. It would be a good investment for them.
One really good benefit of us keeping it so cheap is that we found that many programs can afford to pay for it for their students. So so far, I don't think we've had any program that didn't. We haven't had students pay once because it turns out to be so reasonably priced. Again, we laugh a lot about this situation because we kept saying somebody's got to do this. And then we waited and nobody would do it. And then we waited and why isn't anybody doing this? And then we wrote a business plan and we figured out why they're not doing it. This is not a big profit model, right? The market that you're selling to can't afford to pay with huge margins. You're not going to make any money doing this. This isn't going to be something that you retire on. So, but we so desperately wanted it. We're like, then we have to do it because somebody's got to do this. This is what we need. It's what everybody needs to correct for the lack of portability of skills from skills training programs into jobs.
Yeah, we also are happy to work with you to help apply for funding. So we can house the funding, we can help you apply for it. So we're happy to help offset costs through funding or donations.
I think it's been a great presentation. Any questions, any more questions, comments?
So do you have like colleges in the East Coast who have done this, or is Maryland going to be the first one?
Maryland could be the first one. We also are some interest in colleges in North Carolina, as well as some institutes in New York that we've seen had interest. So you guys can win if you You get us scheduled.
So we all have to work together and invite you to train us and then help credential each other's students, right?
Right.
Definitely. I think it would be a useful thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, I do want to make sure that we thank you for this wonderful presentation. I think we all learned a lot and we are pretty excited about different elements that you shared with us today. And
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great talking with all of you.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is not the only time we will be discussing this. I'm pretty sure there will be more meetings when we will share about this. Yeah. Okay. So
Anytime.
I think what I can do is I can share the meeting recording with everyone, and I can also have your emails shared specifically. So if everyone, or if someone wanted to contact you independently, had more questions later, they could just feel free to get in touch with you. And that would, I think that would be very helpful. Yeah, and thank you for sharing the emails. So actually for the next part of the meeting, we do want to move to some very small agenda items. You can feel free to stay, but it will be very Maryland oriented. So it's up to you if you want to stay on board or want to leave. But if you are leaving, then we do want to make sure to thank you again. And, you know, we'll keep in touch with you on this.
It's absolutely a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to actually jump onto the agenda items, because if we can finish early, then why not? Let me see if I can quickly go to, right there. Actually, I'm just sharing the Google Doc. That's all I'm doing. Okay, so for the rest of the meeting, and please feel free to add anything. So we have been having meetings since about 1 year, more or less. I think last year, September 10th or 12th, we had the first meeting. So Jackie and I were talking, and of course, everyone is included. We were just talking about this meeting and other things. So I was just telling to her, how is the idea of having this as an organization? Not just as people who meet, but more like an organization, because then that gives us a little more credibility. And it gives us a little bit more of voice to talk about these things with the next level of representatives. Maybe it is advisory board, industry representatives, whatever that is, if we have something. And I'm pretty sure there is enough talent to be able to make website, or there is enough talent to be able to do other things or navigate the paperwork. But what I was thinking for the beginning is a nonprofit 501c3. And you can just share your thoughts if this is something that you agree with or disagree with, or what do you think about it?
This is Lori. Are there pros and cons involved with that?
So the pros in the sense, like there is all the organization that we see here, whether you're talking about like Tech Council, or whether you're talking about TEDCO, any of these, all of these are registered organizations. So the benefit that we will have is it's a recognized organization. I would say the cons that come with it is, of course, there is some paperwork in the beginning. So we will have to sit down and go through it. I don't think it's an awful lot of work, but there is some work. I wouldn't say that it is like no work, and we could do it over the emails. So yeah, I was looking at the steps, and yes, there is some paperwork, some in terms of like even tax, or having a board and all of that involved. So we can have a discussion on what it takes to be a nonprofit. But at present, it's just an idea whether it is something that you think is a discussion that we should have or not. It's just an idea at this point of time, but is it something that you think we could talk about? Is this something as a registered organization would help our cause? Just the causes basically to you know, you all know the cause, that is to increase enrollment, to increase the, you know, make our voice felt across so we can have those changes that we would like to have.
I'm not, as I told Amrita earlier, very versed on all of the ins and outs of nonprofits and everything like that. I just wonder if us becoming an organization gives us more of a unified voice as we look towards pushing for transferability, as we look towards pushing for industry recognition for our students and things like that. You know, that kind of thing. And yeah, again, Linda said if we want to get credentials for our students, that might help as well. Just kind of giving us that formality that comes with that recognition then.
I think also then we don't have to find people, people can find us, because if there is a new, let us say, biotechnology program, and we are already there, it's not something that we have to reach out, because in the beginning, I was trying to reach out to everyone individually and making sure that everyone is included. But I do always worry that someone out there is trying to do something about a biotech program, whether it's in college or high school, and we have just not reached out to them, you know, and I'm sure, like, you know, like I know Avi added Gori, so, you know, happy to have her, and maybe Josephine can add other people, and that's really nice. And also it's just, yeah, we can, if once we are a nonprofit, also we have to remember that once we are an organization, we are eligible to apply for grants. So that would be another useful thing. We are recognized, we are eligible to apply for grants. We have a voice in that way. So I see some comments here. Yeah, definitely it will help in getting industry support, because it's, and you know, when we're talking about industry or organizations, of course, they are looking for something which is more like a little more formally established. Once it is established, I don't think there is a whole lot of work there except for some formalities and during the year, but we could all take turns and do it. And that would mean that, you know, whenever I do something, I always think about, you know, is this something that we all are doing because we are also enthusiastic? But what happens when one of us is replaced by another person? So, you know, it keeps it going. It's a formal organization. Anyone who is there would be involved, would be wanting to do things, and keep that initiative, keep it going. So that's what it is. That's what something they're running. And Linnea has come at the right time. So welcome, Linnea. How are you? Sorry, just put you on the spot. So Linnea, we were talking about having this as a nonprofit, as a nonprofit organization, the Maryland BioEducators group. So feel free to share any thoughts, because we were wondering what is the benefits and what are the maybe, you know, disadvantages if we have that. And we were just talking more about the advantages of having it as a nonprofit. Actually, we just ended up the discussion and you kind of.
Sorry, I'm late. I'm doing a lot of things at one time.
Definitely feel free to, you know, share your thoughts on any of those things.
I kind of just jumped in here, so I was not part of the original discussion.
Oh, we just started. Actually, we were talking about, before this, the last 1 hour, we were talking about BCSI and the credentialing, micro-credentialing that they offer. Right. And Angela and Heather were there, and we were talking about that. They shared their slides and what they do as a part of the whole program. And we were all asking questions. So that was our first hour.
Okay, sorry.
And then we jumped to this. I can actually stop sharing and let you introduce yourself. You know, that would be nice if you wish.
Okay, I'm Linnea Fletcher. My bandwidth is not the best this morning. I'm still in Colorado, so I'm not going to do video, because if I do video, I'll probably lose you all. So my name right now. So I'm Linnea Fletcher, and I'm the principal investigator for Innovate Bio, the National Biotechnology Education Center. So. we've had a few internet issues this morning from Colorado. There's only one tower in the town, so.
Yeah, that can happen anywhere. I know that Cindy is also not in town, and she's doing from where she's having her vacation.
Oh, people get vacations, huh? Wow, what an interesting concept.
So I'm just sharing these ideas, and anyone can jump in on any one of these. And
so you're thinking about the nonprofit for your Maryland group, correct?
Yes. What do you think of the idea?
You know, it's kind of interesting. I think it's not a bad idea is in terms of sustainability. Are you going to get someone to sponsor the fact that you're forming a nonprofit, or who's going to help you with that out of curiosity?
I think at this point, we are just thinking if this is something that we would want to do, and then it's almost like we'll cross that bridge when we come to that.
I mean, I actually think it's not a bad idea. I do worry about the fact that, like for me, I'm not ever going to have Innovate Bio be a nonprofit, because Innovate Bio as a center grant has a life expectancy of most 10 years. And then another center would be funded. So if I did a nonprofit, it would be counterproductive for the next center.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I create something that would essentially compete with the next center? To me, if I'm doing something really worthwhile, the next center will fund it, will continue funding for it. But that's probably not the case for you. You know, you don't have your organization, and that in 10 years, another organization will be automatically funded to take your place. So for you guys, I think a nonprofit is worthwhile. It's just a matter of who's going to do the administration for it.
I have, this is Lori again. I'm not sure if this is a question or a comment. I noticed you say, is that Delaware, you mean? Include Delaware in DC Biotech? We already have the BioHealth Capital Region, and I don't know what kind of organization that is, but I wonder if we can't just be maybe a group under that, or maybe under BioBuzz, or I'm thinking of local organizations, for lack of a better term. I don't know if they're nonprofits, that probably are. Maybe something that would umbrella this group and serve the purpose you're hoping for. And I don't know what I'm saying. So those are just thoughts.
Well, you know, actually, that's a good idea. What about your state bio organization? Is it just going to be one state, or is it going to be multiple states that's under the nonprofit?
This was in meetings. So this is nothing to do with the first one. Sorry, these are all like separate things. Okay. Maybe I should just mention that at this point. So this is these are all 4 separate agenda items. And this was just going to be Maryland, and that's a good idea if we are a part of something, as long as, if we are an organization, we feel that it is easier to reach out to people who are related to biotech education. It is easier to have a voice where the biotech education should have a voice, whether it's industry, where it's higher ed, because then it would just mean, to me, it feels like it would mean more credibility. It's a registered organization. It's something that would be helpful. It's not something that I want to just say that it's open to everyone, all the members saying like, okay, I think this is a great idea. That's just my idea. So if we can be in, under another organization, that's something that we can explore, of course.
Well, have you talked to the bio group in Maryland? I know in Texas, if I did a nonprofit, for me, if I looked at the point of view of Texas, I've never thought of doing anything just for Texas, because I have such a strong relationship with THBI. And if I wanted to do more with THBI in terms of education, I could. He already supports everything I ever ask him. I need, everything I've needed in education in the state of Texas, he has supported.
What is
So-
THBI?
The
Sorry.
Texas thing? Yes.
Yeah, Texas Healthcare and Bioscience Institute. So with the two of us, I'll give you examples. With the two of us, we got the skills standards from Washington adopted at the Texas level, the state government level. With Tom Kowalski, he's the one that helped me get an incubator at the community college. With THBI, Tom Kowalski, he helps me to set up a biomanufacturing course that goes for the entire state. He makes this part of all of his meetings. And because he has bigger industry contacts than I could have in the state of Texas, he brings industry to our table. He puts us in his newsletter, whatever we do in education. He was the one who actually helped me create the CSBI, the Coalition for State Bioscience Institute workforce report for Texas. So you can see that because I have such a good relationship with the state bio organization, I feel like our Texas initiatives are umbrellaed under him. So that's why I do ask, what's your relationship with Maryland's bio organization?
So Maryland they have the state level life sciences advisory board. And then industry is more kind of spread out. So different parts of the state it falls under. So like Harford County, for example, is under the Northeastern Maryland Tech Council or something like that. Whereas there's other parts, the Maryland Tech Council. So there's that most of the rest of the state is in. That's a whole nother story. But, so we're kind of more, I think, still siloed at this point. And I think that my concern is making sure that we're really trying to, they're recognizing things that they're still thinking only bachelor's degrees and above. And so how we can come together, that strength in numbers as community college and high school educators to really put forth and show what we have to offer to build our programs and build that acceptability. And so I think does it have to be a 501? I don't know. But I think we need something that doesn't get lost in the shuffle underneath other programs as well. So we'd have to be very cautious in finding the right group that doesn't just bury us down, I think. We're looking to have the voice, not just with industry, but also with for transferability at the state level. Because right now, not a lot of four-year schools want to take our courses in the biotech programs. And so how do we improve that? A lot of what you've done in Texas, and it's just how do we get that voice and that seat at the table to do that? Because Linnea, we know you're a force to be reckoned with. And, when you talk about biotech education, everyone knows your name, but we're still at that forming point. And so how do we leverage ourselves to get to that point, if that makes sense?
And
Right.
I completely agree with Jackie that there is a strong industry voice. There are industry groups. There is a lot of stuff happening when it comes to funding industry workforce, but it's very disjointed from biotech education. So
Yeah.
this literally is literally last 1 year has been a great attempt to come together and bring a good voice to that, because unless we do that, it's not happening. So if you remember, we talked last time that we would like to meet in September, and I'm going to go to the next slide, but I'm going to come back if we have a meeting in September and each program can talk about what is their history or future plans, what is their enrollment, what are graduations, internships, jobs, and what kind of MOA do they have or do they want to have? What are the future plans they would want to have, especially in terms of credit transfer that they would want to have that would be ideal for their program. So then we would know the needs of all the 6 or 7 programs in the state. And that would help us take the voice to the next level. That is, we would like to invite, we have identified 2 or 3 people that we can invite from the advisory board who can listen to what would benefit all the programs in the state as one unified voice, and that might help it bring it to the advisory board meetings.
So why don't you be more blatant about it? Why don't you, before you decide to create your own nonprofit, why don't you just be really blatant with some of these organizations that could possibly umbrella you and help you get better recognition, like Maryland Bio, and invite them to this meeting that Innovate Bio can help you with. And, you know, I can always ask my friends in bio to ask the Maryland Bio people too, if they're interested, if you feel like you can't do it. And then blatantly say, this meeting is to present essentially all the programs that need this type of support. And if you're interested in supporting us, please attend, because we'll also talk about if there is an organization out there that is willing to help us with this, or do we have to form a nonprofit? So why don't you just throw it in their face?
Okay, that's a great idea. We could definitely
just be
do that.
Really blatant with it, man.
And I think that we need to also be cognizant of the fact that we have some very strong high school programs as well.
Yes.
You know, because I think there's also leverage in that, showing that continuity, you know, and forming those better partnerships creates that, you know, path or pipeline the whole way through. And I know that parts of, you know, part of the state programs really are right now, there's a big focus on under, you know, in high schools, them taking either college classes or career training classes, and every student in Maryland graduating with some kind of background in that. And that might also be something that we can talk about, is how can we bridge those gaps and work together in this area, because we know that Maryland is really trying to, you know, become a big area of biotech, the biohealth capital region. And so, you know, I think presenting it as, we can help you, you know, what do you need? How can we, you know, serve and help you in this overall goal that, you know, we have an untapped resource here in our high schools and community colleges, but you need to recognize that. And what do we need to do?
Yep.
So as part of that, I have one more suggestion for you. I know I'm talking too much, but I will tell you. So the other thing that Tom Kowalski and his group, THBI, recognizes, and the state and several of the, because, you know, THBI is the state organization, and just like Maryland, then it's broken up into separate regions, but then Tom actually coordinates all those regions, right? And so one thing, I say this, one thing they recognize, so we literally had this initiative called Blue Chip, where 5 really large pharma companies were interested in moving to Texas. So instead of having to contact all these individual education organizations and schools and whatever, what they did is just contact me. So if you say to them, look, if you help us organize statewide all of the 4 2-year and high school biotech educational programs, we can become then a one-stop part of your organization, that when pharma needs help or bioindustrial, you can come to us. So we can either do that by being an arm of your organization that's recognized, or we can do a nonprofit. What do you want us to do? So that's one of the roles that you could have for them that they would really appreciate. So think about, so I think the idea, exactly what you're saying, is if you're organized together as a larger group and you propose how you can help them and tell them, then they'll see it, but don't expect them to see it themselves. People aren't always that smart or that far.
Yeah, definitely. We need to work on both the things, that is the higher ed piece, where the credit or the transferability piece, and that will have to be definitely with University of Maryland, because they have an umbrella of 16 universities in the state. So they are a very large force to reckon with. Also the skill sets which are useful in industry. And, that's why we have those BASE and BSCI and, whatever it takes for the industry to accept our programs and our students, whether it's actual skills, soft skills, whatever that is. So
And I do have a survey we use with our industry board, our advisory board, in developing our curriculum that maybe we could tweak and share with those industry partners as well to kind of get them to draw in. It looks at like, what are they looking for? It was a basic one. It only should take a few minutes, but that's also something we could use in that as well as, we're looking for your input kind of thing.
Yeah. Maybe you need to do an introductory presentation to both the individuals that you bring to the meeting that could actually umbrella you, and to show them what is the value of unification and having you as their arm instead of a nonprofit. I mean, if you form a nonprofit, well, that'll be fine. And then they can work with you that way. But to be honest, why force you to form a nonprofit and then have to work with you instead of umbrella you within their own organization and take advantage of that? Because, if you're a nonprofit, let's say you go after an NSF ATE, well, then you will have the 10% or whatever you decide indirect grant rate, right? If they umbrella you, when you go after funding, they will get some of that funding. So, I mean, either they force you to go off and do your own thing, and then they have to deal with you as a group, and you'll have your own nonprofit and be thinking about yourselves only, or they can umbrella you and leverage you for what they need, and also they can leverage and you can leverage them. You see what I'm saying? It's like,
yep. We have a raised hand. Lori, you want to share something?
Yes, I'm a little hesitant to speak because the recording is on. However,
I can pause it. Let me see.